Everybody, this is Blake. Good news, my Critiquing the Critics episode that was not working is fixed and is up. You can find it on my website, and I'll release it throughout the rest of YouTube on Wednesday. I'm going to be reviewing Lockout, which I could have saw last week, but I decided not to because I wanted to see The Raid Redemption and The Cabin in the Woods, both of which turned out to be great movies. This one isn't so great. It's not unwatchably bad. It's just sort of marginally entertaining. It's the type of movie you just kind of watch and you forget about it immediately afterwards. I'm going to probably struggle when it comes to this review. But this is that prison in space movie. It stars Guy Pearce as sort of an action hero who has to go rescue the president's daughter in this prison that's in space. It's really stupid. The only way that the plot can move in this movie is by some characters' unbelievable stupidity. How the first prisoner gets armed and ends up starting a rebellion is incredibly stupid. The way that the prisoners take over so quickly and so easily is really stupid. It's funny because the main characters often do some really stupid shit, but they never really draw too much attention to it. Like, there's this one part where there's like a negotiator and he's trying to get the president's daughter, and it's actually a pretty intelligent sequence in terms of what he does. And I'm thinking, you know what, that's actually not a bad idea. But then the main guy screws it up incidentally. I'm thinking, how did they let this happen? This guy was doing so well, but then the good guy had to screw it up by getting on the ship or whatever, the space base. But it was like, oh, come on, somebody call this guy out on this. And then the main girl makes this big decision near the end, and you're like, okay, that's pretty admirable, but it ends up being pointless like 2 minutes later. So why did they even have to do that? But in terms of like script problems, I think my biggest complaint was they convoluted. They have this subplot involving these stolen secrets, and I just wasn't really interested in that. And it seemed like, at first it's sort of the setup, then they get to the prison in space sequences, and then they just resolve that way too quickly and way too anticlimactic. It's way too anticlimactic. And then they go back to this stolen secrets thing, and it just, by that point, was really boring, and I'm just thinking, come on, movie, please end. But otherwise, like, I could forgive stupidity to an extent when your movie is clearly not meant to be District 9, which I consider to be pretty stupid too. But since Lockout really had no ambitions to be anything but dumb action, I can't hate it too much for those problems. But when it comes down to it, I think whether or not you're going to like it comes down to the one-liners. The main character, Snow, it's like everything he says is some sort of wisecracking one-liner. And at times it is really funny. It is pretty clever and creative. But then other times just like, okay, seriously, movie, you're taking this too far. It's like it wants to be satirical, but it doesn't go far enough to be that type of movie. It just seems, it's part clever, but then also part obnoxious. Like Scream 4 and how it constantly breaks the fourth wall and constantly does this is a horror movie type dialogue. Sometimes it was cool, other times it was really annoying. And that was Lockout to me, even though it doesn't break the fourth wall at all. It's just so many one-liners, and it gets old eventually. Guy Pearce does a good job, though. I was surprised because I thought he would make a very poor action hero, but I could take him seriously, and I thought that meant something. I thought the actors in general do a great job. The characters are pretty one-dimensional and boring, but the actors all are very energetic in their deliveries, especially with the villains. The villains are actually by far the more interesting characters, but only because the actors are so interesting in how they portray them. What else can I say? Oh yeah, the love story was really, really lame. And in fact, the movie at times seems to almost acknowledge this. Like at the very end, there's a weird throwaway line that kind of suggests that, yeah, this love story sucked and we know it. But what I hated is that, and this is a problem I think with a lot of 80s and early 90s movies, is that it seems like when a movie wants to write an independent and strong woman, they always have to make her really obnoxious and annoying. She's just loud and constantly bitchy and bickering. And I'm almost sad for females because they're portrayed so terribly in these movies. The good examples of them end up being the worst elements of these movies. And I always think, why can't you just downplay that? You know, women can be strong and independent, but contribute to the story and aren't just getting in the way. They're a positive force. But for some reason, movies don't like to do that with female characters. And I notice in a lot of 80s and 90s movies that actually possibly could have began with Raiders of the Lost Ark, even though I'm sure you could find much earlier examples, is they're constantly bickering, the main pair. And, you know, at times it's cute, but other times it just gets, like the dialogue, it just gets old eventually. And that's really all I could say about that. In terms of action, yeah, there's some pretty good action. There's also some decent special effects, but then some really, really bad special effects. In fact, there's one scene that's rendered almost unwatchable because the camera work is so freaking annoying and the special effects are so awful. I don't even think I've seen such bad effects since oh God, what was it? Ultraviolet maybe, or The Sound of Thunder. I don't remember what came out first. But it's when he's on some like futuristic motorcycle and there's this big chase scene. It looks like something that came from a PlayStation 2 effect. It was horrendous to watch, and the director is like trying to move the camera all around crazily just to distract us from the poor effects, I presume. But it's really, really awkward. But the rest of the effects are just okay. They do a decent job considering the budget, but still, I guess, bringing back District 9. I think District 9 had the same budget, and that was much more impressive when it came to its visual effects. But with Lockout in general, it's one of those movies that if you know what you're getting into, you'll just dismiss it as harmless entertainment. And I knew what I was getting into, so yeah, I expected the dumb problems, the parts where they're clearly not as clever as they think they are, but otherwise, I thought it was harmless entertainment. It's one of those movies where I'd say definitely watch it on DVD or maybe on TV, but don't go to the theaters and pay that much money for it. But I did not do a written review, so that's all you get to hear about this from me. Like I said, wait till DVD, or if anything, just watch it like when it comes on Netflix or something like that. But that's that. Once again, watch my Critiquing the Critics episode, and I'll see you guys later.